please do, because I never know when it's constructive to call people names, you know, Senator. I just, on the left or the right. But
I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but let me say it again.
Senator, you keep bringing it back to my feelings. My feelings matter a little. All I'm telling you is if you think you can gain this November calling people names, I don't know how far that goes, left or right, but we'll see. It's still early, to your point.
Your feelings seem to me like they matter to you a lot, Neil, and I'm trying to be objective here. Let me say it again.
Are you really being objective, Senator? I just think you've got a bash-a-thon, a name-calling at her. If you call that being objective, I don't know. But, Senator, I do want to thank you for coming.
As the polls, fundraising, and political momentum shift in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris, MAGA Republicans are scrambling to redefine her to their benefit. And bizarrely, they've settled on repeatedly publicly insulting her, a strategy that's so stupid it led to an explosive argument between a Fox News host and a sitting Republican senator. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. Before I get to the heated conversation between Fox News host Neil Cavuto and Republican Senator John Kennedy, which is the bulk of this, I also want to address, or play another clip rather, of another Fox News host, Stuart Varney, making this point to somebody else earlier in the day.
What Donald Trump called Kamala Harris dumb, that was a profound mistake, in my opinion. Women react to that kind of thing, and so they should. I mean, don't you think he should tone down the language? And okay, get through to the central message, by all means, but tone the language down. He said he was going to be nice, and then he says, oh, I'm not going to be nice. I think that's a mistake.
And I imagine the polls will reflect that soon, but for whatever reason, the Republican Party is doubling down on it, which again led to this explosive standoff between Neil Cavuto and John Kennedy, a Republican senator. These clips are long, but they're important. We're going to play them and unpack them together.
Alex Castellanos, one of the brightest political commentators I know, and he's made the point that the burden on the vice president is to prove to the American people that she's a serious person. Margaret Thatcher didn't giggle. Golda Meir didn't giggle. When you look at the polls, fair or not, many Americans, and again, this may not be fair, but I'm just telling you what the polls show. Many Americans think that the vice president is a little bit of a ding-dong, that she's not serious.
Well, this ding-dong, Senator, has risen in the polls, and I'm wondering if the strategy to focus on her laugh or the former president calling her nasty and crazy really promotes that push to show she's not up to the job. Does it look petty? Does it say to judge her on this level looks like a strategy that could backfire on Republicans? By all means, get her on the issues that matter, like you've talked about abortion, to clarify what this Supreme Court push might be about. But to focus on this other stuff just looks dumb.
Well, what I was going to say, Neil, if I could finish my thought, when you look at the polls, fair or not, what the polls, the crosstabs show, is that those Americans who have an opinion of the vice president think that, number one, she's a bit of a ding-dong, and number two, that she is a member of the loon wing of the Democratic Party. She's a San Francisco
that member
Democrat.
of the loon wing, Senator, that I'm not, casting aspersions either way, though. That member of the loon wing is now, dead even with Donald Trump in one battle state ground after another. Now, I'm not saying that might last. I am saying that this loon is surging, and if the Republican approach to her is to treat her like a loon and a cackle, and she is just an empty suit, I wonder how far that'll go.
Well, I'm sorry if that offends you, Neil, but I'm just telling you what the people of America think.
I'm just telling you what the polls are showing right now. Now, if you think they're short line, they're not going to last, and you're okay with this approach of talking about her laugh and nasty and disrespectful and all this stuff that Donald Trump has said, you don't think part of that is going to kill you at the polls?
I'm telling you what I think the American people think right now, based on the polling that I've seen, and let me say it again. I think that fair or not, and it may upset you, but fair or not, the American people think Those who have an opinion of the vice president think that, number one, she's a little bit of a ding-dong. She's not a serious person. They've had one vegetable in chief. They don't want another.
Okay, folks, this is stunning, right? And it gets worse from here, but you can tell John Kennedy is defensive, the fact that Neil Cavuto is pushing back at all. So a couple of things to remind you. Right now, according to a Fox News poll, and Fox News is, just even though its opinion commentators and its pundits are awful, its polling reputation is pretty sterling. The vice president is effectively tied with Donald Trump and leading him in many crucial swing states. And she hasn't had her Democratic convention yet. She isn't even the formal Democratic nominee yet. They haven't had their first debate yet. Her political potential is simply greater than his. He is maxed out. He's cracking 40% barely, despite having enormous political advantage at his disposal, and despite the fact that he was recently shot in the head. So you would think that there would be some sort of sympathy wave for it. Donald Trump is tapped out. And by the way, he's always been unpopular. He's never even cracked 50% approval rating when he was president. So I don't know what polls John Kennedy is talking about. I'll also remind you that if you look at the polls, poll after poll after poll shows that anywhere from 50 to 65% of the American people think that Donald Trump is mentally unfit to be president. There is no such poll indicating anything comparable for the vice president. So again, John Kennedy here is being very disrespectful and very hypocritical. And also just his opinions aren't even based in reality whatsoever. Imagine how he'd feel if somebody referred to Donald Trump that way. But there again, that goes to illustrate the asymmetry between the two parties and the expectations they're held to. Another clip.
She believes in strength, our national security strength through weakness, that if we just sit down with our enemies and have a cup of hot cocoa and give them a hug, that they'll be nice to us.
I don't know if she suggested the cup of hot coffee. You raised a number of very clear issues, substantive issues that could be debated. I guess all I'm saying, for all the problems and calling her a loon and all that, and I get it. I know it's political season and that happens on both sides.
I didn't call her a loon, Neil. You're putting words in my mouth. I said she's a member. She's a member of the loon wing of the Democratic Party, and there is a loon wing of the Democratic Party.
What's the difference between the loon wing and being a loon? The only reason why I'm saying it is, if that is so, and you have a lot of American people who have now taken another look at her, and maybe it's short-lived, to your point, Senator, she is running even with Donald Trump, and I'm just wondering about the approach you're taking, and it's very artful, don't get me wrong, and you raise a lot of substantive issues. It's going to come back to bite your hinds, isn't it? Aren't you concerned about that?
I'm telling you what I think the American people think. It may not be what I think, and it may not be what you think, but this is Washington.
Then what do you think the polls that shows that she's running even with Donald Trump, regardless of what either you or I think?
Well, the polls that I have seen, the most recent polls, you can't just look at the top lines, Neil. You've got to look at the crosstabs. And if you look at the crosstabs and really drill down and see what people think, let me say it again. The polling that I've seen shows that many Americans think that the vice president is not a serious person. As I said, that she's a bit of a ding-dong. And number two, that she is a member of the loon wing of the Democratic Party. She's a San Francisco Democrat. She's just like Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, except without the bartending experience. She is.
I almost wonder, by the way, John Kennedy, I know he sounds like an uneducated moron, but believe it or not, he's Harvard educated, very smart guy and very affable when he wants to be. I'm stunned that this is the strategy that they're settling on. I mean, it makes me wonder if he secretly defected to the Democratic Party and is secretly just maintaining his, official Republican title just to damage them in the eyes of Americans. So there are bartenders all across this country, people with bartending experience, young people, especially Gen Z, and Republicans have been hemorrhaging young voters for decades. They probably need to at least try to win them back, especially since President Biden had been vulnerable with them, particularly in the past year. They had potential to try to gain ground with a crucial cohort of voters, and he's once again just throwing it all away. And by the way, how about that? I didn't call her a loon, Neil. I said she was a member of the loon wing of the Democrat. What is that? That is a distinction without a difference, or a difference without a distinction. I didn't say she's a thing. I just said she belongs to a category of that thing. What? It's so pathetic. And even you just the look on Neil Cavuto's face, he's like, really? And then, by the way, to then go on, I didn't say she's a loon. I said she's a member of the loon wing, but she's a ding dong. Do you mean she's a part of the ding dong caucus? She actually is a ding dong. She is a ding dong, but is merely part of the loon wing of the Democratic Party. And by the way, it's funny that he talks about crosstabs. It's a good point. You should dive deeper into polls than merely looking at the headlines. There was a recent Reuters Ipsos poll. Kyle Kalinske broke this down on his channel really well. I referenced it in one of my previous videos. But if you look on major policy initiatives, including the damn economy, the vice president is tied with Donald Trump on the economy, which is a category that ridiculously Republicans have polled better at than Democrats for decades. And if you look at other things as well, she's polling ahead. They are vulnerable on these issues. Stunning, absolutely stunning. You can see in real time. Neil Cavuto is trying. He's like, man, let me just tee this up for you to not be a dick. Just take it. Take the opportunity. And John Kennedy is like, no, I'm not going to. Ridiculous. One more clip.
The idea that we should have a law that says you can have an abortion at any point, no questions asked, even up until the moment of birth, I think for most Americans is a loon wing position. That's just my opinion, and but that's also what the
just
polls show.
No, you're absolutely fair game to make it. I'm just wondering how you think that will resonate with women when she is called nasty and crazy and a ding dong and all and disrespectful between you and the president. What has been said about her? I'm just wondering, do you worry how that comes across? And maybe you draw no distinction between a female candidate and a male, and that's fair game. But that this could hurt you with female voters with these type of comments.
Well, let me say it again.
Sure.
The vice president is a candidate for president of the United States. I don't care about her gender, Neil. Maybe you do, but I don't. I don't care about her race. I care about her competence.
Then why call her a ding dong?
And I'm telling you what the polling shows. The polling shows. And it does. And I'll be glad to sit down with you and walk you through the polls.
Please do, because I never know when it's constructive to call people names. Senator, on the left or the right. But
I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but let me say it again.
Senator, you keep bringing it back to my feelings. My feelings matter a little. All I'm telling you is if you think you can gain this November calling people names, I don't know how far that goes, left or right, but we'll see. It's still early, to your point.
Your feelings seem to me like they matter to you a lot, Neil, and I'm trying to be objective here. Let me say it again.
Are you really being objective, Senator? I just think you've got a bash-a-thon, a name calling at her. If you call that being objective, I don't know. But Senator, I do want to thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Neil. I hope you have a better day.
Yeah, so do I. Hope you have a better day. We'll have more. Yeah.
Again, this is honestly, electorally, as a Democrat, this is good for us. This is good for us, what we just saw. As a matter of fact, I think more Republicans should do this as a winning strategy. Republicans, if you're watching, this is absolutely the right move. Making personal insults to the vice president of the United States when you're fielding two candidates this unpopular and this weird, absolutely banger strategy. More people should do it. Sarcasm aside, again, I'm stunned. That was the most aggressive doubling down of an enormously ineffective and polarizing strategy I think I've seen in politics in a long time. And maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene or somebody like that, Lauren Boebert. I don't even know if Matt Gaetz would do what Senator John Kennedy just did. Again, especially as he's carrying water for Donald Trump, a profoundly stupid man. 40 out of 44 cabinet members and senior staff won't endorse the guy. Many of them have said that Trump is an idiot, a moron, incurious, ignorant, mentally deficient, unfit for office. The polls reflect it too. Wildly unlikable. Her favorabilities, the vice president's favorabilities, her popularity relative to Trump is skyrocketing. Stunning. Stunning. And kudos to Neil Cavuto for pushing back on this and making it the whole point of the segment, not letting it up. And again, he kind of played with kid gloves. Cavuto didn't snap. He didn't raise his voice. And again, he offered one opportunity after another. Like, it's almost like T-ball. He was playing T-ball, with like a child or a nephew or a son or something like that. And just like, hey, listen, I'm just going to make this so easy for you. You've got this. You can just knock it right up. Oh, you miss again. You miss again. So ridiculous. I really am. I saw these clips and I was just stunned. But if this is the future of the Trump-Vance campaign and the Republican strategy, I feel even more confident than I did the day before. So great stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments.